Growing up, I always believed in the sanctity of marriage. Watching my parents navigate their struggles with grace, I imagined that love was an unshakable foundation. My father, a mechanic, and my mother, a school teacher, always seemed to find a way to balance their differences. They showed me that no matter how tough life became, honesty and effort were the glue that held them together. When I met Dakota, she seemed to embody everything I wanted in a partner. We connected instantly, and within a year I found myself standing at the altar, confident that I was entering a bond as unbreakable as the one my parents shared. Yet life has a way of surprising us, sometimes in the most devastating ways. My name is Jackson Healy, though most call me Jack. Standing silently at the doorway to my bedroom, I watched my wife, Dakota, entangled with a man I didn't recognize. For nearly 10 minutes, I observed without a word, recording the scene on my phone, snapping photos, and even jotting down details in a surreal state of detachment. They remained blissfully unaware of my presence, their actions unfolding like a grotesque play. The repetition of their movements finally snapped me out of my daze, and I knew this wasn't just a betrayal. It was the beginning of the end. As I watched, the guy seemed oddly familiar, not because I knew him, but because he resembled me. Same age, same height, same build, brown hair, blue eyes, nothing remarkable. The only difference, he wasn't me. That seemed to be the appeal. It's a cliché, I know, coming home early from a business trip to find a strange car in the driveway. That's how I ended up here. What bugged me was that Dakota had her lover park in plain sight, on our cul-de-sac where neighbors could easily see. Was she not worried about getting caught? Finding her with another man was a shock, sure, but what stung most was how she acted. In 18 years of marriage, I'd never seen her like this. Our bed life was tame but satisfying, or so I thought. She never once hinted at wanting something more. Yet here she was, saying things I didn't even know she knew, growling into her lover's ear with passion I'd never experienced. Oddly, I didn't feel rage, no urge to grab a tool or a softball bat. I was angry, hurt, and confused, but there was no fury. I think it's because I already knew. This was the end of our marriage. She did this, and there was no coming back. Case closed. As I debated my next move, I noticed an unopened box of rubbers on her nightstand. "Why bother having them if you're not going to use them?" I muttered. After we had our daughters, Sheridan, 13, and Helena, 11, Dakota made me wear rubbers until I got a vasectomy. She said 2 kids were enough, though I'd hoped for a son. I still regret not pushing harder for that. Then I realized something else was missing. Dakota's nightstand always had 4 photos, her little shrine. Now 2 were gone, a family portrait and our wedding photo. The ones of our daughters were still there, prominently displayed for her lover. "What kind of nonsense is this?" I muttered to myself. The photos weren't anything special, just baby pictures or maybe shots from kindergarten. Still, their absence felt oddly significant in the moment. After a bit of thought, I realized where they'd likely be, in the second drawer of Dakota's expensive Drexel Heritage chest next to the bed. I opened the drawer quietly, and there they were. I knew because of Dakota's habit of tidying up before the cleaners came. She'd stash anything out of place in that drawer, a quirk I once teased her about. At a neighbor's party, I joked, "Do you clean before the cleaners come? Dakota always does." Instead of laughing, everyone looked at me like I was clueless. One replied, "Of course you do." As I took the photos, I wondered if she hid them to show respect. Maybe her lover asked her to. Either way, it didn't matter. I slipped the photos into my pocket and left the house. It was only 3 p.m., so I decided to head to work. After days away, I was sure my desk had a pile of meaningless papers. I slipped into my office unnoticed and locked the door. Setting the photos on my desk, I stared at them, unsure why I'd brought them. Maybe they were a reminder of what I was losing or what I had to fight for. Finally, I called my old college roommate, Ennis H. Dixon, who happens to be a family lawyer. After navigating through 3 secretaries, he finally answered the phone. "Jackson, good to hear from you," Ennis greeted. "What's going on?" "I need your cell number," I said flatly. There was a pause on his end. Then he asked cautiously, "Oh, no, what happened?" I gave him the rundown. "As far as I know, they're still at it in my bed." Ennis let out a heavy sigh. "Damn, that's low. So, what's the plan?" "Divorce," I said without hesitation. "And I want them to feel it." "Well," Ennis replied, his tone lifting slightly, "you're lucky for 2 reasons. I'm the best family lawyer in the state, and you don't live in a no-fault state." "Perfect," I said firmly. "Let's do it." "Wait, Jackson," Ennis cautioned. I assume you want primary custody of the kids? That's hard, but doable. Also, even with proof of infidelity, Dakota will probably get alimony. She's a stay-at-home mom, and you earn a lot. I don't care, I said firmly. Do whatever it takes. Never say that to a lawyer, Ennis joked. But I'll take it seriously. Just know this will take weeks, and you'll need to act normal around her. Can you manage that? Yes, I said through gritted teeth. I emailed him all the evidence, signed the prepayment form through DocuSign, and hung up, feeling more resolved but deeply depressed. A knock on my office door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I said. My assistant, Franny Graybull, peeked in hesitantly. Is everything okay, boss? Yes, Franny. Everything's fine. I just came back early and got busy. She frowned. I know, Jack, but you brushed past me earlier without even saying hi. You've been in here for over an hour. Sorry, Franny. Just a lot on my mind, I said dismissively. Franny Graybull had been my assistant for over 15 years, hired at Dakota's suggestion. She was a longtime friend of Dakota's who had fallen on hard times after her husband, a non-combatant military man, died in a work accident. His life insurance was just $12,000. Not much for a widow with 2 kids. Despite the circumstances, hiring Franny was one of the best decisions I ever made. She turned out to be an exceptional assistant. Okay, Jack, Franny said hesitantly. I'll head out now. As she turned to leave, her eyes landed on the photos on my desk. Are these new? She asked. Yes, I replied. I brought them here to remind me of what matters. That's sweet, she said warmly. Have a good night. Bye, Franny. I wanted to say more, but Ennis's advice about acting normal held me back. On the drive home, my mind raced. How could I act normal after seeing what I'd seen? Going to a hotel was out. Too many people at work had noticed me. Reluctantly, I headed home. When I pulled into the driveway, Dakota was already at the garage door. Her expression flickered with fear, anxiety, and anger before settling into a bright smile. Oh my God, Jack, you're home. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow, she said, her voice a mix of surprise and nervousness. I thought I'd surprise you, I said evenly. I got in around 3 and finished the day at the office. Well, we're glad you're home. She kissed my cheek. Dinner will be ready soon, but it's not much. I wasn't expecting you. That's fine. I'm not very hungry anyway. I'll change out of this suit. Feels like I've been in it forever. I started upstairs, only to be ambushed by the girls. They hugged me tightly, squealing, "We missed you, Daddy." I missed you too, I said, forcing a smile. Their joy gave me strength. At least I had them. Freed from their embrace, I walked into what used to be my bedroom. Everything looked normal. The sheets smelled fresh, the room was spotless, and the bed was perfectly made. Dakota must have noticed me staring at her nightstand. "Oh, I broke the frames while cleaning," she said casually. "I took them to Aaron Brothers to get them fixed." Her tone was light, but the lie was clear. I nodded silently without looking at her and continued changing. Eventually, she left. For the record, she smelled fresh as always, like a daisy, just like every other day I came home. My attempts at acting normal fell flat. Dakota was tense all evening, and dinner, usually lively and loud, was painfully quiet. I spent most of the time with the girls, helping with their homework, while Dakota sat stiffly, wearing an unreadable expression. The girls seemed to sense something was off, but didn't ask questions. If I'm going to pull this off like Ennis suggested, I thought grimly, I need to get better at pretending. After the girls went to bed, I poured a glass of Maker's Mark and settled into my old office chair in the man cave, the only space in the house I could call my own. Warm and comfortable to me, Dakota always called it an embarrassment. I knew I'd have to face her eventually, but she beat me to it, walking into the room with a worried look, wringing her hands. Normally, she avoided this space entirely. She sat on the couch opposite me. "Come here, little bunny," I said lightly, patting my knees. Her face lit up as she quickly moved to sit on my lap. I kissed her cheek and said, "Sorry I was so quiet at dinner. The trip didn't go well, and I've got a lot to sort out. I just needed some time." She relaxed visibly. "It's okay, Jack. I could tell something was bothering you. Let me help you forget your work problems tonight." But she didn't. Sure, we made love, gentle and familiar, the same as always. There were signs of satisfaction on both sides, and we snuggled afterward. I thought this was what she wanted. It couldn't have been further from what I'd witnessed earlier. Dakota hugged me tightly and whispered, "You know I love you, Jack. You've made my life complete." Her words made my stomach churn. How could she say that so easily after what she'd done? The lies rolled off her tongue as smoothly as if she were reciting a recipe. Then it hit me. She'd been doing this for a long time. The realization sent a chill down my spine and left a heavy weight on my chest. A few moments later, I heard her steady breathing, a clear sign she had already fallen asleep. Less than 8 hours earlier, she had been fooling around with her lover in this very bed, and now she was asleep as if nothing had happened. What kind of person can do that? Needless to say, I didn't sleep at all. I managed to pull myself together and left for work early in the morning. I needed to get out before Dakota got up to get the girls ready for school. I scribbled a quick note on the dry erase board in the kitchen, which we often used for such messages. I had to leave early for work to start solving the problems I told you about. For the next 2 weeks, I somehow kept up the act. As the days went by, waiting for news from Ennis, I started to feel a little better. Maybe this is how liars get good at lying, I thought. They just give themselves enough time to practice and hide their actions. Dakota, on the other hand, grew more anxious. She seemed distracted, like she had a lot on her mind, but she never said anything to me directly. She was affectionate, almost excessively so, going out of her way to be considerate. She must have told me she loved me at least 25 times a day. She even started complimenting me on things like the way I dressed. She should have noticed the missing photos, I thought. They didn't vanish on their own. But for now, she seemed to follow the rule of don't ask, don't tell. I hoped it would stay that way for a while. Franny was acting strangely too. She knew me well enough to sense even slight changes in my behavior. She kept pressing me to talk about it, which irritated me, but I stayed silent. I told her I was under pressure at work and that I'd be fine. She always knew when I was lying. What made it worse was her constant attention to the photographs on my desk. What's the big deal? I thought, frustrated. I had long accepted that I wasn't great at reading women's emotions. I couldn't tell if Franny was sad, worried, or angry. But each time she left my office after looking at the photos, she had this peculiar expression on her face. I think women are just better at this than men, I told myself. I started questioning my sanity. I didn't feel the emotions I thought I should. Instead, I felt hollow. It was like a 50-pound weight sat on my chest every moment, making it hard to breathe. I was only pretending to live. I needed this nightmare to end. Fast. That's when Ennis called and asked me to come to his office immediately. When I arrived, his expression was grimmer than usual. Yes, we've got them cornered, Ennis said. But here's the hard part, Jackson. You need to prepare yourself. Dakota dated Mr. Du Bois a long time ago, before you were even married. I took a deep breath. How long ago? I asked, my voice barely steady. According to what we've found, Ennis said in a low tone, Du Bois bragged about sleeping with Dakota the morning of your wedding, just a few hours before the ceremony. He claims she told him she was going to give you sloppy seconds that night. I should have lost it completely, but instead I found myself asking, how did your investigators uncover this? It's better if you don't know, Jackson. A lot of what we've got can't even be used in court. And frankly, if I weren't so good at what I do, we might be in trouble for some of it, Ennis replied with a dark chuckle. Damn it, I muttered, running a hand over my face. The kids, I wonder if they're mine. Ennis's expression darkened, and I could tell there was more bad news. My voice trembled as I asked, There's more, isn't there? Before he could answer, a thought struck me like lightning. Holy crap, Ennis, maybe she's married to him too, I blurted out. Like one of those people who leads a double life. 2 families, a bigamist. Ennis shook his head. Du Bois is married, but not to your wife. He has his own family. Been married 10 years with 3 kids under 8, he explained calmly. The gears in his mind seemed to turn as he added, Well, setting him up to burn is easy enough, if you're willing. I hesitated, the weight of it all sinking in. I don't know, Ennis. I don't want to destroy his wife and kids. Ennis leaned forward, his voice firm. Jackson, you might actually be doing them a favor. If you watch the video of Dakota and Du Bois, you'll see how much he tears into both you and his own wife. Dakota doesn't exactly encourage it, but she doesn't stop him either. My team found out that he only married his wife because Dakota wouldn't divorce you to be with him. I stared at him, the betrayal twisting deeper. Why does she even want to stay married to me, Ennis? We're working on that, buddy, he reassured me. Just give us some time. The frustration boiled over as I clenched my fists. I can't take this anymore. When can we serve her? Very soon, Jackson, Ennis said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. But I'm working on something worth the wait. Life went on. Dakota remained affectionate. She kept the girls on their best behavior, and we started making love more often than before. But nothing had really changed in how we made love. She seemed genuinely happy. I didn't think she was that good an actress, capable of pretending all these years. It only made her betrayal more disturbing. I was driving myself mad, spiraling as I tried to make sense of her actions. How could she say one thing and still betray me? I decided the best thing to do was fake it until I could be done with it. What on earth was Ennis waiting for anyway? The following Monday, he called me and asked me to come back to his office. Ennis was the type to crack a joke even on his deathbed, a man who rarely took anything seriously. But now, as I watched him, his expression was so tense, I wondered if he might actually be sick. He nodded slowly, clearly gathering himself. Look, Jack, I'm not sure how to tell you this, but it could change your perspective on custody. My stomach dropped. They're not mine, are they? I asked, my voice barely audible. Ennis hesitated. We won't know for sure until we do a DNA test, but no. I don't think they're yours, but it's worse than that. I blinked, stunned. How could it possibly be worse than them not being mine, Ennis? They know, Jack, he said gravely. What are you talking about? I interrupted sharply. Ennis leaned forward, his voice low and steady. The girls know that Du Bois is their father. My team got video footage of him, Dakota, and the girls having a picnic at the park last Sunday. The girls called him Dad. He and your wife held hands, kissed, and played games with Sheridan and Helena. For a moment, everything went black. When I came to, memories flooded back. Last Sunday, while I was cleaning up the lawn, Dakota had told me she was taking the girls to the park. I blinked and realized Ennis was pressing a cold towel to my forehead. Jackson, what happened? You were out cold. Let me call the paramedics. No, I'm fine, I said, shaking my head as the fog began to clear. Sorry about that, Ennis. God, it feels like my whole life has been a lie. Buddy, Ennis said with a small, grim smile. You just hit the magic word. What word? I asked, confused. Fraud. I let out a bitter laugh. I was thinking you're a better man than I am, because if it were me, I'd be out for revenge. I wouldn't stop at divorcing Dakota or warning Du Bois's wife. I'd want to go all the way. Ennis leaned back in his chair. Did you know you can get a marriage annulled for fraud? Annulled? I repeated, incredulous. We've been married for 18 years, Ennis. How can that even be an option? The time doesn't matter, he explained. You just have to apply within 4 years of discovering the fraud. I won't lie, it won't be easy, but it's worth considering. If you get an annulment, there's no alimony. You probably won't owe child support either, though that's up to the judge. What? I said, the disbelief clear in my voice. Child support? You can't be serious. Unless we can prove Dakota and Du Bois deliberately deceived you into raising his kids, there's a chance you'd be stuck, Ennis admitted. But that's not why I'm suggesting annulment. If we file for divorce, your case stays low-key. Annulment after 18 years? That'll make headlines. Tabloids will eat it up, public shame for both of them. It also strengthens your case for recovering child support. Plus, I get my 40%. Maybe I'll even give you a 5% discount. I tapped my chest mockingly. Your generosity moves me, Ennis, right here. Ennis leaned in, his tone serious again. That's not all, Jack. We've uncovered more. I listened as he laid out the rest. By the time we made our plans and parted ways, I thought I was past the point of being shocked. When I got back to the office, Franny was on me the moment she saw me. Jack, what happened? You look like hell. I'm taking you to a doctor. No, Franny, I said firmly. But, Jack... I said enough, Miss Grable, I snapped. She looked startled and left reluctantly, clearly upset. I didn't care. I had left my emotions back in Ennis's office. Not half an hour later, Dakota appeared at my doorway, dressed to eliminate. 4-inch heels, a plunging neckline. It was obvious she was trying to impress. Damn, she looked good. What a waste. Franny called me. She said something happened, Dakota said. I snorted sarcastically, cutting her off. I struggled to keep my composure as I tried to form a response. Then I noticed her eyes scanning the room for something. She was looking for the photographs. She knew where they should have been. She took a deep breath and sat in the chair across from my desk. No underwear. Really? Did she think that would help? You were there. You saw us, Dakota said finally. Her tone was tinged with sadness, but she spoke calmly, almost matter-of-factly. Her words, however, hit me like a knife. It doesn't mean anything, Jack, she continued. It's just a fling. It doesn't compare to what we have together. I leaned back in my chair, my voice cold. Tell me something, Dakota. I know this wasn't the first time. How long has this been going on? She hesitated briefly, then responded, her voice soft but steady. No, it's not the first time, honey. But it's only been a couple of months. 2 months? I pressed. How many times? Only 3 or 4 times, baby, I think, and never before in our house, she said, her expression almost genuine. I screwed up. It's over. Let's just forget about it. The lie slid off her tongue without the faintest sign of guilt. No sweat, no clenching of hands, no averted eyes. She didn't even blink. She simply lied, staring straight at me. It was painfully clear she had no intention of giving up her boyfriend. Thank you for being honest with me, Dakota, I said, my tone measured but cutting. Most cheaters would just lie and say it was the first time, like drunks who swear, honestly, officer, I only had 2 drinks. But you told me the truth. You gave me the chance to see into your soul, to know who you really are. And I appreciate that. Her eyelids fluttered faintly at my words, but she quickly composed herself. Still, something in my tone or demeanor must have unsettled her. Don't do this, Jack, she said, her voice firm but pleading. It won't end well for you. You'll be hurt in ways you can't even imagine. There's no need for this. Let's just leave it and move on with our lives. I love you. You love me, and we both love the girls. Please, just let it go. That almost sounds like a threat, Dakota, I said, narrowing my eyes. Oh, honey, I'm sorry if it came off that way, she replied quickly, her tone softening. That's not what I meant. I just mean, you control how much you let my failures hurt you, and us. But mostly, it'll hurt Helena and Sheridan. They've done nothing wrong. I did this. Please, let's talk about it tonight. I know I can make you understand. I let out a long, steady breath. All right, we'll talk tonight. But for now, I need to get back to work. She leaned in and kissed me, her lips smoldering as though I were her lover and not the man she'd betrayed. We're so good together, baby. Don't let my mistakes destroy our family, she murmured. With that, she turned and walked out, carrying herself as though none of this was her fault. I sat there in stunned silence for a good 5 minutes before pressing the intercom. Miss Grable, please come in. Franny entered hesitantly, avoiding my eyes. How long have you known, Miss Grable? I asked, my tone sharp. You told her about the photographs, didn't you? She said nothing, only dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, her gaze fixed on the floor. I'm waiting, I said firmly. She finally looked up, her voice trembling. So now I'm Miss Grable again, after all these years? Yes, I replied curtly. And I'm Mr. Healy for the time being. Should I fire you? Jack, Mr. Healy, you know I need this job now, she stammered, her voice breaking into sobs. Not if I get the truth from you, I said evenly, and you agree to testify under oath for my lawyer. What's your choice? Franny took a shaky breath before speaking. I've known for a long time. Disgusted, I picked up the office phone. Georgina, connect me to William. I have an issue to discuss. William? Franny's voice trembled as she interrupted me. Bill Cody, VP of HR, I replied coldly. Please don't do this, she pleaded. I'm so sorry, Mr. Healy. I knew about this before you even hired me. What exactly did you know, Miss Grable? She hesitated, dodging my question. I slammed my palm onto the desk with a loud bang. She flinched. I'm out of patience. You know about her. Her activities. Enough games, Miss Grable. Talk now. She seemed torn, weighing whether to tell me everything. I softened my tone. Please, Franny, you owe me this much for betraying me. I need to understand why. Franny was nearly hyperventilating, but managed to gather herself. When she finally spoke, the words spilled out in rapid succession, each revelation a fresh wound. Byron Du Bois, she explained, was her maternal cousin. She had known about his relationship with Dakota since high school. She also admitted that she knew Helena and Sheridan weren't my biological children, and that their conception had been deliberate. Her betrayal cut deeper than Dakota's. I trusted you completely, Franny, I said, my voice trembling with anger. Why was Dakota so desperate for me to hire you? She wanted me to keep her informed if you got close to discovering her secrets, Franny admitted, her head bowed. And to let her know if you ever cheated on her. For God's sake, I muttered, leaning back in my chair. Franny, do you have any idea why she married me? Just earlier, she was here declaring her undying love and begging me to stay together. You won't believe it, but she truly loves you, Franny said quietly. I let out a bitter laugh. Sure, that's easy to believe now. It's true, Mr. Healy. Years ago, I asked her the same thing. She told me she loves you, but she needs Byron too. That's all. I slammed my fist on the desk. She destroyed my life for your cousin, I shouted. Franny shook her head, looking even more distraught. Why the kids, Franny? I demanded. Mr. Healy? She hesitated, looking as if she might crumble. Out with it, I said sharply, pointing at her. Are you sure? It's worse than you can imagine, she whispered. I've heard that before. Just tell me. Franny stopped crying and met my eyes. There was pity in her expression, but no hesitation as she delivered the final blow. Dakota told me she asked Byron to get her pregnant because she wanted her children to come from an alpha male, she said softly, watching my reaction. I couldn't stop the bitter sarcasm. So I'm the beta. Franny nodded reluctantly. Yes, she wanted the kids to have what she called alpha bloodlines, but she thought a beta, you would raise them to be kind and compassionate. She believed your character was better suited for parenting. Byron agreed. She also told me she needs both an alpha and a beta to feel complete. The absurdity of it all broke me. I laughed uncontrollably, a sound that bordered on hysteria. When I finally regained control, I waved Franny off. Schedule an appointment with Ennis, I said, my tone flat, and make sure you come clean completely. Understood? She nodded, understanding the weight of her next steps. At the door, she hesitated and turned back. What should I tell Dakota, Mr. Healy? I sighed, exhausted. You can call me Jack, Franny, and I don't care what you tell her. It doesn't matter anymore. Good night. She paused again, her expression tentative. Wait, just out of curiosity, not that it matters. But do you think I'm a beta? Tears streamed down her face again. Yes, but it's not a bad thing. That's all, Miss Grable. She sobbed, turned away, and quickly left, shutting the door behind her. I didn't know exactly what my next step would be, but I knew I wasn't going home. I decided to take a chance and called my friend Butch, hoping she was still in her office. To my luck, she was, and I headed over to see her. Let me tell you about Butch. Her real name is Cheyenne Gillette, and she's the director of IT. She's a retired U.S. Navy commander, rumored to have been the first woman to qualify for Bud's naval school before a knee injury derailed her career. She's tough as nails, fiercely private, and unapologetically lesbian. She once told me, if you're going to call me a lesbian, make sure you capitalize the L, but I prefer queer, just smile when you say it. I didn't fully get it, but I respected her, and we were friends, probably the only real friend she had at work. Our friendship began after I witnessed a Neanderthal maltreating her outside the break room. When she'd had enough, she shoved him to get away. Normally, I stay out of people's personal conflicts, but this guy crossed a line and deserved worse. When Butch realized I'd seen the encounter, her face drained of color. She knew she could be in trouble. A director shoving an employee? Usually a career ender unless you're connected to the owner. I approached calmly. Miss Gillette, he shouldn't have pushed you like that. Are you okay? She smiled faintly, leaned toward the guy, and whispered something in his ear. As she walked past me, she said, Call me Butch. All my friends do. 3 days later, the guy was fired, and that was the end of it. We'd been friends ever since. Once I thought I'd blown it when I accidentally called her Butch in a management meeting. You could have heard a pin drop, and I was sure my career was over. But she didn't flinch. She simply replied, Okay, Sundance, and moved on. From then on, she called me Sundance, and if you were Butch's friend, you were her friend for life. Damn, Sundance, you look like hell, she said when I walked in. That had become her standard greeting. What's going on? Rumor has it there's a storm brewing in your world. That's an understatement, Butch, I said, collapsing into a chair. I need a place to stay for a while. Can I crash with you and Becky? Becky was her partner of 17 years. Of course, Jack. I'll clear it with her, but I don't see a problem. Want to fill me in? I unloaded the entire story, sparing few details. When I reached the part about Franny's betrayal and mentioned my plan to fire her, Butch held up a hand to stop me. You can't fire her, Jack, he said firmly. That's opening us up to a wrongful termination suit. Worse, she could claim retaliation for personal issues unrelated to work. You can't risk it. Nonsense, Butch, I snapped. She sets me up and I'm supposed to let it go? Butch leaned back, unfazed by my outburst. Relax, Jack. I have a better solution. Work with Bill to transfer her. I need a new admin anyway. His grin turned wicked as he added, Oh, and raise her salary. That way she can't accuse you of stalking her or maltreating her. You said she needs the money, right? I couldn't help but laugh. For the first time in a while, something felt like a step in the right direction. Maybe this was the start of my long climb back. You see, Butch had been at the company for 5 years, and in that time, she'd gone through at least 12, maybe 13, administrative assistants. That's not even counting the ones who quit before starting, when they learned they'd be working for her. The first few who left tried filing complaints or lawsuits, but none succeeded. Butch treated everyone the same way she treated herself, with exacting standards. She kept flawless records and didn't tolerate nonsense. Among the admin staff, she was nicknamed the Angel of Death. If you worked for her, you were considered a dead man walking. That evening at their house, I went through the whole story again. Becky listened with a sympathetic shake of her head, while Butch's anger seemed to grow. I was relieved she was on my side. Once I finished, calmer now, I recounted my conversation with Franny after Dakota had left. "Oh, that quiet girl is going to love working for me, Jack," Butch said with a wicked grin. I decided to ask about Franny's comment regarding me being a beta. "That's a masculine trait, right?" Butch rolled her eyes and leaned forward. "Of course you're a beta, Jack. Do you even know what a beta male is? He's an amazing lover because he genuinely cares about his partner's needs. He's faithful, a wonderful father, and capable of having real conversations with his wife that don't revolve around sex. A beta male deeply values his family. He does his own laundry, cleans up after himself, and is reliable without being controlling. He's not threatened by his friends or his wife's independence. There are a million other traits like that." "Jack, Franny wasn't insulting you. She was complimenting you." I frowned, still skeptical. "But what about Dakota's comment about the alpha gene?" Becky jumped in before Butch could reply. "That's something you'll have to ask Dakota about, Jack. You know that already. For your own peace of mind, you need to confront her. I can't say I understand why she did what she did, but I think I can see her thought process." "What? You—" "Relax, Jack," Becky interrupted, holding up her hand. "Let me explain with a question. Do you think Butch is an alpha or a beta?" "Definitely an alpha," I said without hesitation. Becky shook her head, smiling. "You're wrong. She may be an alpha at work, but at home, she's absolutely a beta." "Why do you think I've stayed with her all these years? At home, she acts like a beta." I turned to Butch, surprised. She gave me a wry smile and nodded in confirmation. "That's right, Jack," Becky continued. "I'm the alpha in our partnership. Butch lets me take the lead in our relationship in and out of bed. She has to be an alpha at work, but being a beta at home balances her. She needs both to feel whole." I nodded, processing this unexpected insight. "And Jack," Becky added, "all of us move between alpha and beta traits depending on the situation, unless, of course, we're sociopaths." Butch's eyes welled up as she looked at Becky with admiration and love. They were clearly soulmates. I remembered seeing a similar look from Dakota once. I wondered if this could really be true. Maybe men can do the same, but women seem better at compartmentalizing. "I think Dakota was being honest with Franny when she said she needed both of you to feel whole," Becky concluded. At that moment, Butch stood up, sat on Becky's lap, and they kissed passionately. Embarrassed, I started to leave, apologizing as I stood. "Don't go, Jack," they said in unison, laughing as they composed themselves. "We'll behave." "It's true, Jack," Butch added. "Becky is my soulmate, but she's the one in charge here. How are you holding up?" I took a long pause to gather my thoughts. This new perspective was overwhelming and it hurt my brain to process, but it helped me recognize the contradiction in my life. "You know," I began, "after listening to you two and observing your relationship, I think she really does love me and need me. But the problem is, instead of being upfront about what she wanted from the start, she turned my life into a lie for her own selfish reasons. She knew I wouldn't go along with it, so she deceived me to get her way. I'll never forgive her for that." "So, what's next, Jack?" Becky asked. "What about the girls? I believe they love you. You said you love them too. You can't just shut them out because of what their mother did." "I don't know, Butch," I admitted honestly. "I just don't know. I do know that Dakota and I are getting a divorce, and nothing will change my mind. I know it's petty and might damage my relationship with Helena and Sheridan, but I'm going to make Dakota and her lover hurt, and I'll hurt them badly." Curious, I asked, "What do you both think about Franny's role in all this?" Becky stayed quiet, but Butch spoke up. "I don't know if this makes sense, Sundance, but in some ways her betrayal feels worse to me. Your wife is who she is, flawed, yes, but driven by her own warped ideas of love and need. Franny's betrayal, though? That was cold, calculating, and unforgivable. Leave her to me." I nodded, understanding they got it. "Thanks for letting me stay here." I'm going to bed. That night, my phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from Dakota. I ignored all 20-plus messages. The next day, I arranged for Franny's transfer. She would start as Butch's assistant on Monday. May God have mercy on her soul. In the meantime, she was sent home with pay for the rest of the week. I was still living with Butch and Becky, grateful they hadn't rushed to kick me out. I continued ignoring all of Dakota's attempts to contact me. What was the point? I even instructed security to keep her away from the office and parking lot. A few days later, Montana, Dakota's older sister, showed up unannounced. I'd forgotten to warn security about her. Montana had never been warm toward me, and the feeling was mutual. She always wore a smug grin, as if she held some secret over everyone else. Today was no different. Without an assistant to stop her, she waltzed into my office, her usual smirk firmly in place. Maybe this time I could wipe it off her face. "What do you want, Montana?" I asked, folding my arms. "Not that I don't already know." She raised an eyebrow. "Can I at least come in and sit, Jack?" "Fine," I said, motioning to a chair. "But don't get too comfortable, you won't be here long." She sank into the chair, crossing her legs. "Look, Jack, I know we haven't been close, but hear me out for a few minutes. Then I'll get out of your way." Her tone carried the same condescending edge as always, as though she were addressing a petulant child. "You know she loves you, Jack, and she'll do anything to fix her mistake. Do you believe she loves you?" I tried to suppress my laughter, but a bitter chuckle escaped. "You know what, Montana? I actually believe she loves me, but it doesn't matter. I feel nothing but contempt and disgust for her. Anything else? I'm really busy." Montana's expression hardened. "You're an idiot, Jack. You always have been. I don't know what she ever saw in you." "Well, at least we agree on that, Montana. I don't know what she saw in me either," I replied, dripping with disdain. "I didn't come here to argue, Jack. Since you won't talk to her, she wrote this letter for you." She leaned across the table and handed me a thick white envelope. I glanced at the envelope. The words, "For my dear Jack," were written in Dakota's handwriting. With exaggerated enthusiasm, I stood, walked to the shredder, and fed the unopened letter through. All the while, I kept my eyes fixed on Montana, now wearing a wide grin. "You're a stupid, childish boy, Jack. You're causing so much pain for yourself and your family." Her voice was sharp as she stomped toward the door. "Hey, Montana," I called out, stopping her mid-stride. "Before you go, care to tell me about Brockton Bozeman?" She froze, her entire body stiffening. Slowly, she turned back to face me, the arrogance draining from her face and giving way to panic. "I don't know what you're talking about," Montana stammered, her voice shaky and desperate. Her composure crumbled as I pressed on. "I'm sure your husband Troy would find it fascinating," I said evenly. "Please, Jack, no," she blurted out, visibly unraveling. "This has nothing to do with Troy. I was just trying to help Dakota. She really loves you." Tears streamed down her cheeks as the realization of her dwindling options sank in. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, her voice trembling with desperation. I met her gaze, unflinching. "You have a week, Montana," I said coldly. "Either you tell Troy everything or I will. If you try to cover up your double life, he'll get all the evidence. And trust me, I have plenty. He'll get it regardless, but since I'm such a nice guy, I'm giving you a chance to sell him on your lifestyle. If he doesn't come to me personally by the end of the week to say he's okay with it, he'll get everything." "Jack, please," she sobbed. "I know you don't believe me, but I love Troy. He means everything to me." "Yeah, I've heard that before," I replied, my tone razor sharp. I studied her trembling form for a moment before adding, "But you know what? I do believe you. That's why I'm giving you this week. If I didn't think you loved him, he'd get the evidence tomorrow." "Jack, no, I'm begging you," she pleaded, her voice cracking. I didn't flinch. "Are your two boys really his?" I asked bluntly. "Jack, you don't understand." "It doesn't matter," I cut her off. "You have a week. Goodbye, Montana." I pointed to the door. "Close it on your way out." Without waiting for a response, I turned back to my desk and began sorting through papers, unwilling to look at her any longer. I didn't know Troy well, but he deserved to know the truth. Ennis's team had uncovered that Montana, like Dakota, was living a double life. Maybe Dakota got the idea from her. Maybe it ran in the family, or maybe it was something straight out of Cosmo. Either way, it didn't matter. The door clicked shut behind her. I reached for the phone and dialed. "Ennis, burn them." "Music to my ears, buddy," Ennis replied. "But listen, Jackson, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. Nothing about this has been easy, Ennis. What now?" I asked, my voice weary. His tone was deliberate. I think an annulment is your best option. With the evidence we've gathered and Franny's sworn testimony, it's straightforward. We'll file your petition and the annulment affidavit, then serve her. Simple. I'll make sure the media picks it up. But there's a catch. With an annulment, you forfeit visitation and custody rights. You won't pay alimony or child support, but it'll be like the girls never existed in your life. Unless Dubois or Dakota allows you to see them, which is unlikely after we torch them, you'll lose them completely. This is all or nothing, Jackson. Either you commit to the end or we file for divorce, and you walk away poorer. What's your choice? Damn, I muttered, the weight of his words sinking in. It just keeps getting worse. Damn. Ennis, I need time to think. I'll get back to you in a few days. Fair enough, Jackson. Let me know when you're ready. I loved my girls. At first, hearing them call Dubois daddy filled me with rage. But then I realized they just thought they had two dads who loved them. It wasn't their fault. Who knows what Dakota had told them? I genuinely didn't know what to do. That evening, I discussed it with Butch and Becky. They didn't have answers, and I couldn't blame them. Still, for the sake of the girls, I leaned toward divorce. Then Dakota made the choice easier, by talking to Montana. What a shock. After work, I stopped at the Horse's Head Bar and Grill for a drink. Despite the misleading name, no horse-themed decor, it was quiet, which I needed to sort my thoughts. But that peace didn't last. Hello, Jack, Dakota said, her voice calm but firm. We need to talk. Come outside with me. Without waiting for my response, she walked out. Confused, I threw a 20 on the counter and followed her. Outside, she pointed to a Chevrolet SUV in the parking lot. Do you see them, Jack? I spotted Dubois sitting in the driver's seat, Sheridan and Helena in the back, their faces tear-streaked. Dubois started the engine and drove away without looking my way. What have you done, Dakota? I asked, my voice cold. Dakota smirked, her eyes glinting with malice. If we don't come to an agreement now, that'll be the last time you see your daughters. I'll get custody in a divorce. Sure, you'll have visitation rights, but I'll make sure they never want to see you. I stared at her, stunned by her audacity. My voice was steady, though my anger simmered beneath the surface. What do you want? For us to stay together, Jack, she said calmly, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. But you'll have to accept Byron being part of my life. I leaned forward, my voice cold and deliberate. I know they're not my daughters, Dakota. Her smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered. They are your daughters, Jack. I loved two men and didn't know who the biological father was, but I knew you were the best man to raise them. I shook my head, disgusted. You're lying, as always. She bristled. What makes you think that? Because your lips move when you lie. It took her a moment to register the insult. Jack, she yelled. I didn't hold back. Get away from me, you vindictive witch. See you in court. I walked to my car, called Ennis, and said, move forward with the annulment, and take down Dubois while you're at it. I knew Dakota would use the girls as leverage, but I was determined to end this. I moved into a hotel and finalized the arrangements with Ennis. He filed for a temporary restraining order, confident Dakota would violate it and give us leverage. He even joked that it'd be great if she hit me or caused a scene. 2 days later, she delivered. Dakota stormed into my office, swearing and throwing things before slapping me repeatedly. Security subdued her, and the police took her away. Ennis was disappointed she didn't hurt me more, but used the incident to secure a permanent restraining order. The divorce hearing was set for 60 days. Ennis, ever dramatic, ensured it became a media circus. The judge denied Dakota's lawyer's request to close the hearing, likely eyeing re-election. In the end, I got my annulment, Ennis got a talk show, and the tabloids thrived. A week later, Troy, Montana's husband, visited me. I'm not as strong as you, Jack, he said tearfully. I love her and need her. Our kids are grown, but I can't lose them. I know the boys aren't mine, but I'm their father. And she's giving up her lifestyle? I asked. She says she will if I stay. I think she loves me. That's different, I said. Maybe you're stronger than me, Troy. I just can't forgive. He nodded, shook my hand, and left. I later heard he and Montana moved out of state after their kids graduated. I never saw them again. The same day I met with Troy, Mrs. Byron Dubois received a hefty package from FedEx. Things unraveled quickly for Mr. Dubois after that. Perhaps I acted too hastily because by the time the court ordered him to repay my child support months later, he had nothing left. Ennis nearly had a heart attack when he realized his 40% amounted to just $250 a month. Furious, he even retracted his 5% discount offer. He calmed down only after I asked how much he was earning from his talk show appearances. About 6 months after the annulment, I reached out to Dakota, asking if we could meet to talk. Everyone told me I needed closure, and I had unanswered questions. We met at the Horse's Head. "Are you kidding me?" she said the moment she saw me. "After everything you did to Byron and me? Hell will freeze over before you see my girls again. If you so much as whisper to them, I'll slap a ban on you so fast your head will spin." "After what I did to you?" I asked, incredulous, pausing to control my temper. "What if I lift the restraining order and agree to fund the girls' college education? I know you and Byron are struggling. As you've said, the girls aren't to blame. I want them to have the chance to go to a good school." Her demeanor softened slightly. "I don't know, Jack. Listen, Dakota, I'll even babysit if you want to take a weekend trip or something. I know they're at an age where they don't need much babysitting, but I just want to stay in their lives. I love them. And maybe, to explain why I acted the way I did. I promise not to badmouth you. I'll just say you wanted a different lifestyle, and we decided to part ways." "Let me think about it," she said, her voice softer now. "Do you mind if I ask you a few questions, Dakota? It's not to change anything, but I need some answers." "Whatever, Jack," she said impatiently. Her attitude stoked my anger, but I stayed calm. "Why? Why ruin my life? For what?" She sighed, exasperated. "You did this to yourself, Jack." Sensing my frustration, she raised her hands defensively. "I know my actions drove us apart, but you went scorched earth on me. What did you expect me to do? You ripped my soul out and fed it to wild dogs. What did you think I'd do when I found out?" I snapped. "I expected you to be hurt. Of course I did. But I also thought we'd sit down and talk about it like adults, figure things out. You know Troy and Montana are still together, right? They worked through their problems." Montana told him she'd leave her lover, not that I believed her. "At least she tried to fix their marriage," I retorted. "You told me I'd have to accept Byron in our lives," I reminded her. Her expression hardened, her voice pained. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jack. Until you found out about Byron and me, you thought you had a great life. I helped you find that life. I loved you deeply. My heart broke when you left me." "Then why did you need both of us?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. She exhaled slowly, avoiding my gaze. "I don't know, Jack. My sister did it. Some of my friends did too. You might not know, but this lifestyle is becoming more acceptable." I snorted in disbelief. "Oh, please. Then why not tell me before we got married? And by the way, did you really sleep with Dubois on our wedding day?" Her face twisted in outrage. "Who told you that? It's a complete lie. I would never do that." She sounded genuinely offended. "And let's be honest, if I had told you about my desires, would you have married me? No, you wouldn't have. But I loved you, Jack. Sometimes I wanted sex. Don't get me wrong, I loved what you did in bed. But you couldn't just take me without worrying about hurting me." I studied her, trying to discern her sincerity. She seemed honest, but her words left me cold. Deciding to move on, I asked, "Why did you have to sleep with him in my bed?" Her voice softened, guilt flickering in her eyes. "I know you won't believe me, but that was the first and only time we ever did anything in our house, let alone in our bed." "Why then?" I pressed, still skeptical. She sighed deeply, her sadness palpable. "Byron and his damn alpha tendencies. He just had to push, and I gave in. It was a moment of weakness. Stupid, stupid, stupid." She looked on the verge of tears. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch before asking, "By the way, about this alpha and beta thing." "Oh God, Jack," she groaned in frustration. "Can we drop it already? You were a wonderful husband, father, and lover." "Then why have children? And don't tell me it wasn't deliberate." "I know better," I said, my tone heavy with accusation. She looked ashamed before responding. "Jack, you're just an anonymous middle manager in a mid-sized company. You drive a minivan. Your idea of fun is sitting in your depressing man cave watching sports on TV. Byron's idea of entertainment is chartering a plane to see the game live or flying to Vegas for the weekend. He drives Corvettes and used to own a successful business. Sure, that lifestyle is intoxicating, but it's not sustainable. And yet, here you are, not with me, but with him." "It won't last long, will it?" I asked, my tone cold. She hesitated before admitting, "No. Living with that arrogant idiot full-time is very different from having him around part-time. Besides, he's a terrible father. Exactly what I suspected. I don't feel sorry for you, Dakota. You made your bed, I said, my calm voice masking the anger beneath. Her demeanor softened, her voice quieter. Look, Jack, I know I messed up, especially with that ridiculous stunt at the bar with the girls. It was stupid and desperate. I know that now. I felt like I had nothing to lose. If I could undo that, or better yet, undo everything, I would... Her voice trailed off, leaving a silence between us. I didn't feel any better about the conversation. The closure I'd hoped for felt as out of reach as ever. Frustrated, I pushed back my chair and stood to leave. Jack, wait, she said, grabbing my hand. I still love you, and I always will. If you come back to me, I promise everything will be different. I'll cut Byron out of my life for good and spend the rest of my days making it up to you. I pulled my hand free and looked down at her. It's too late, Dakota. Thanks for meeting with me. Think about what I said about the girls. Goodbye. Jack, please don't leave. I need you in my life, she pleaded. But I didn't look back as I walked away. I never heard from Dakota about my proposal for the girls. I didn't know if she was still with Dubois or living on the streets, and honestly, I didn't care. But the uncertainty about Helena and Sheridan gnawed at me, sometimes driving me mad. They were innocent in all of this. Did I do the right thing? I was sitting in Emilio's, my favorite neighborhood dive bar, nursing my second Jack and soda, when Emilio dropped another in front of me, shaking his head. Nearly 2 years had passed since the annulment, and I was still wallowing. If I didn't tip well, Emilio probably would have kicked me out months ago. Every evening, without fail, he greeted me the same way. Here comes Mr. Sunshine. Try not to suck all the life out of my place again, okay, Jack? I wasn't exactly the life of the party. Drinks courtesy of the lady at the end of the bar, he muttered, nodding to the left. Going to cry on her shoulder too? Scare her off like you do everyone else? You'll cost me another customer, you idiot, he grumbled, walking off. Curious, I glanced down the bar and froze. Franny was walking toward me. I hadn't expected to see her. Although I'd seen her at the office a few times, I'd made an effort to avoid acknowledging her existence. That wasn't always possible. One day, she cornered me by the break room. I'm not leaving, Jack, she had said firmly. Fire me if you want, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. I won't make it easy for you. Then she walked away. After that, I stormed into Butch's office, seething. Why is she still here? Calm down, Sundance, Butch said evenly. I treat her the same as every other assistant I've had. And you know what? She's the best I've ever worked with. She takes everything I throw at her without complaint. If she fails, she fails. But as long as she delivers, she stays. And here she was, still Butch's administrative assistant, a record for that position. Over time, her resilience dulled my hatred. I started to think of her as an invisible relic of my past life. Hello, Jack. How are you? She asked cautiously. I didn't respond, so she continued. Do you think we could talk? I paused, weighing the idea. Maybe it was time. Yes, Franny, I think we can.